Hi, everybody. Welcome. We're glad to have you here. Come on in. We'll get started in just a moment. There we go. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Innovation Week. I'm Melissa Ward. I'm the head of initiatives and partnerships at The Mill. The Mill is based out of Bloomington. We're a co-working space, economic development, and a business incubator for tech focused startups. And we have our annual Innovation Week. Today is sponsored by the National Security Innovation Network, NSIN. And they have been giving us some great sessions all day today. This is the second one. Hopefully you were with us this morning. This panel is all about purposeful ecosystem collisions. And we have the Midwest Tech Bridge, the National Security Tech Accelerator, and of course, NSIN. So we'll have a really great talk. We ask that you ask questions throughout the whole session. Please use the Q&A at the bottom of the screen. Go ahead and put them in there, and then the presenters will be able to ask or answer questions as they have time. So that's it from me. I'll see you at the end. Otherwise, I'm handed over to Mike Dodd. Thanks.
Thanks, Melissa, and thanks everybody for joining. So quick intros before we kind of wade in. Mike Dodd from the National Security Innovation Network, and my colleague Alex Dieters, who is a program analyst on our program side from our portfolio, helps on the kind of the execution. So we're kind of the 1-2 punch here with NSIN, and my dear friends and colleagues Brooke, Pyne, and Ann Fields. Before I kind of wade into our slides, really the front end of this thing is really about kind of collaboration. And, you know, the session, Very Purposeful Ecosystem Collisions, is by design. I mean, that's why our three entities are here. And you'll see as we kind of get into discussions, we're really about cross-pollinating and collaboration on all fronts. So our entities together offer, you know, a full suite of programming and tech scouting and acquisition pipelines for you. So kind of keep that in mind as we're chatting through kind of capabilities and how we kind of engage with each other. But that is the thread of this, is collaboration for academics, non-traditionals, and our large primes that are here kind of in the ecosystem. Alex, with that, would you mind throwing up the deck and we'll kind of wade in? I'm going to go through my session in 5 or 6 minutes and then turn over to my colleagues. So you'll see kind of the introductory slide, some of my teammates, and of course, Governor Holcomb and Brian Langley and General Tooley down in the lower. So we've got very strong support worth mentioning from the state. If you're not familiar with Governor Holcomb's Next Level initiative, where we're targeting a 300% increase in DoD dollars here in the state by 2025. So you have a tremendously supportive state government, and then you've got all the in-state collaborators here as well. Next slide, please. So, who is NSIN, this National Security Innovation Network? Some of the fast facts: we are a DoD program of record, and that's recent in the last year and a fairly kind of big deal. Where we report into kind of the org chart of things, we direct report to the Undersecretary of Defense for Research and Engineering. So positioned really, really well in the org chart, and access to kind of problem statements and customers is fantastic. You'll see the bottom bullet there, partnership with 42 universities. That's actually 44 now. So there's 44 engagements across the country with our university partners. Next, please. So who are our customers? You'll hear a lot of folks here locally talk about, Naval Surface Warfare Center Crane. Certainly as a warfare center, they're important regionally and here to the state ecosystem. But NSIN, we work with over 30 DoD customers. So everything from the combatant commands down to tactical units, we'll work with even sometimes on the platoon level to access problem statements, and then all the way up to OSD and all the DoD labs. Next, please. So, kind of, who we are and what do we do? I said kind of on the intro, we cause very purposeful collisions as the dramatically plain vanilla version, but it's really about accessing the ecosystem for problem solving for our DoD customers. So it's a push-pull, right? Well, so we'll identify problem statements from DoD, take them through our ecosystem and do the mapping, whether it's to non-traditionals, academics, and or primes that have the capabilities to kind of solve or work on some of the problem statements. And then we do that in reverse too, right? Where as I collaborate with Ann and Brooke and start to map the capabilities that we have in each of our ecosystems, and then we're going upstream looking for those problem statements and then connecting into those. The other thing that we'll chat through here is we're looking for the true holistic best-in-class solution for our problem sponsors. So a big part of the activity is trying to find whether it's academics or non-traditionals who may have not have ever done anything inside DoD, and give them a number of pathways to engagement and access to acquisition and or contracts. Next slide, please. Here's just the kind of the quick map, and all these slides will be made available afterwards, so you'll have contact info and all that kind of great stuff, but you'll see kind of our footprint, great national footprint, and all the universities that we currently work with. Next, please. So, again, how do we engage a partner in the ecosystem to no kidding, try and do business at the speed of business? So on the university side, our suite of programming, if some of you may have heard of and or participated in our Hacking for Defense hackathons, which are typically a couple of day hacking events and also kind of recruiting events. Our acceleration portfolio, we have a number of different internships and fellowships. We've got 2 underway right now, and I'll start to do recruiting here. Alex and I will do recruiting here for our X-Force fellows, which will place next summer onto DoD problem statements here this fall. So in a couple of weeks, and Alex can correct me here, but in 3 or 4 weeks, we're going to start the recruiting for students and the problem curation that we'll place students on. And inside the venture community, this is a big move for us, and I think just the activity inside of DoD. So you'll hear a lot, how do you do things? You got to have quals, past performance. You got to have financial capacity to perform. So we're starting to work with the venture community to make sure that they have access to these early stage or newcos, and they can make investment decisions, and companies can seek capitalization early on, right? So there's not this catch-up kind of period at the end. So involving the VCs and private equity and institutional finance partners has been a huge push for us, so that we can capitalize companies once they have access to contracts, win, and can scale. Next, please. Here's kind of the snapshot of a couple of our programs that are underway and available. I'm not going to talk to each of these, but these are there. They'll be in the deck for you to kind of peruse through. The couple that are important to jump off the page is that X-Force Remote and the X-Force. So those are those paid fellowships for students and academics. And if you look for our Hacking for Defense, that's coming to IU here in the spring, currently already underway at IUPUI. The Defense Innovation Network is kind of a Slack channel for .mil people. So no whether your capability as a company or research area as an academic, there's communities inside here where you can engage and collaborate and iterate around that topic area with actual DoD program managers and acquisition folks. So we can give you access to that through an invite, or any academics can already get whitelisted into that. Next, please, Alex. So we've also got a what's called another transaction authority coming out. We're actually under the proposal submission period right now, and it's our Institute for Nascent Innovations. So it's just to oversimplify this is an acquisition vehicle that will be available to the non-traditionals and academics looking to get on contract. So we work, as you're about to hear, very closely, of course, with Brooke and Smart's OTA and their consortium. This is non-dilutive of that. This runs in parallel. So this just becomes simply another tool in our ecosystems box so that you have access to contracting funds that are plugged into different program offices. Next slide, please, Alex. And now, as I just alluded, introduced my esteemed colleague, Brooke, and to hear more about their other transaction authority and the Smarts Consortium. Thanks, Brooke.
Thanks, Mike. I really appreciate it. And I have a lot more slides than what Mike has, and he's not shocked about that at all. But some of these we'll flip through pretty quickly. So Alex, I'll be flipping through some of these pretty rapidly. But there are slides that I certainly wanted to share for future reference that has a lot of really great information about the OTA environment and some of the scope around SMART. So with that said, next slide, please, Alex. Okay, so what is OTA? So other transaction authority, as Mike just mentioned, and it is a non-FAR based tool, vehicle that is utilized to really keep up with the pace of technology, increase the speed of acquisition. So as threats and technologies advance, this tool is to kind of help us with those rapid advancements to ensure that the needs and requirements are being met. But it also gets back to the diversification of sources. So this gets to increasing that pool of innovators and kind of getting into that non-traditional community and potential partners for that community within the OTA environment. So I'm not going to spend much more time on this slide. I want to get to the next two slides as well to give you guys a few definitions that really is the backbone and foundation to the OTA environment. Next. Okay, so SMARTS is aligned to what we call 2371B authority. So this is one of the OTA authorities that a lab or an agency can actually utilize. So this has a lot of words on it. Again, it's legislation in US code, but I wanted to put it on here for future reference. But the main thing to really tie into right now is that prototyping definition. So 2371B aligns us to that prototyping domain. Now, with that said, I want to really make sure everyone understands that prototyping in the OTA environment does bump up to the tail end of basic and applied research and takes you all the way to production. So it's a very broad area of scope within product development and a life cycle development cycle. So it does cover a very wide scope of projects, technology advancements. Business processes can actually be a part of an OTA as well, so it doesn't have to be the development of a widget. There's several different things that align. So I wanted to put this in here, if anything, for future reference on what the definitions are for purpose, prototype, and participation of the OTA environment. We call this the 3 Ps, so you have to check box on each one of these. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is a question I get a lot. It is, what is a non-traditional? And a lot of people want to think a non-traditional is someone who has never done business with the government before, someone that is a startup or a small business, and it can be all of those. And in fact, if you look at the very last bullet, it can be someone that has less than $50 million in CAS-covered efforts with the Department of Defense. So a non-traditional is very broad as well. So because I get this question a lot, and what is the criteria of a non-traditional, I wanted to throw this in there again for future reference. So if you're interested in understanding where you align, and if you are considered a non-traditional, please go back and reference this slide. And if anything, you can certainly look up the US code as well to get the broader definition, but it is very, very broad in scope. And especially in the Midwest region, a lot of entities that we engage with fit this definition. Next slide, please. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about NSTXL. Let's talk about who we are, how we kind of manage, and how this structure works within the OTA environment. Now that we've set context with what an OTA is, what do we do? So we are really, the best way to describe it is we're kind of a center hub for how this OTA kind of functions. Yes, the OTA is awarded out of NSWC Crane, which Mike mentioned during his brief, a local lab here in Southern Indiana. But with that said, there is scope alignment to the vehicle, and actually other entities can come in and utilize the vehicle. And we do have some of that happening right now where they're utilizing the vehicle within scope. NSTXL is really responsible for creating a collaborative environment, a government-ready environment in those critical technology scope areas that align to SMART. So how do we do that? So we have very focused and intentional outreach, again, on those areas aligned within the scope. We have extensive teaming and partnering. That is a really big part of the OTA environment, finding the other folks that can help you provide an all-inclusive solution back to the federal government and embed those partners within your solution set. We have our members really drive some of that networking and engagement, even back with the federal government. So big part of what we do is teaming, communication with government sponsors on the opportunities and within the community. So with all of that kind of happening within our broader community, what are we seeing? So we're seeing higher quality solutions and teaming arrangements, much more solid teaming arrangements from early on in the pursuit of those solutions, which is also key. We are seeing community growth in those critical areas aligned to the OTA scope. Again, yes, those are areas aligned to NSWC Crane, but they also have broader outreach as well within the DoD and other agencies as well. And then the other thing we're really seeing in this community is it's helping drive technical dialogue with industry, academia, non-traditional small business, and back with those government customers that are kind of making those investment decisions. So really trying to enable the communication within those critical areas within the OTA vehicle being the viable vehicle to actually execute the funding and the projects under. Next slide, Alex. So what makes NSTXL a little bit different than some of the other OTAs and some of the other consortium managers? So there's a few things I want to hit on. One is the open source model. So what I really love about that model, especially coming from a 17-year Navy civilian career, is that all of our opportunities are, anybody can read them. They are publicized to the masses. We distribute to the masses. You can be on a notification network and you can read every opportunity we have all the way down to the final document. You do not have to opt in to be a member of our consortium to see the opportunities. You do have to be a member at proposal submission, but that allows those individuals to make a business decision on if and when they need to opt in and pursue an opportunity without being blocked from those opportunities and understanding where the money is at. Which makes us very technology, location agnostic. Really doesn't matter where we sit. We are kind of across the board, doing outreach across the board, across the US for all of our opportunities. So another thing that we do is we are a non-traditional ourselves. And again, the OTA is about non-traditionals. So because we've kind of lived in that environment, we've grown in that environment, we've excelled in that environment, we can help mentor other non-traditionals within the defense sector on how to kind of get through some of the red tape, how to kind of navigate, the path forward on any partnership potentially with the federal government. And of course, as always, teaming. I can't say it enough. Big part of what we do. Actually, that's why we're here today, because not only do we have entities that team on opportunities, but you see that the innovation ecosystem enablers such as Ann, Mike, and myself, we team as well. We are after the same type of community, the same type of entities, and we cross-pollinate frequently on opportunities, teaming, and who we all know within that ecosystem. Next slide, please. So now I'm going to deep dive just a little bit of the specifics on SMARTS and the SMARTS vehicle. Next slide, Alex. So I'm not going to deep dive this very much. I've already kind of given you the benefits and objectives of the OTA environment. One other thing is that you can incrementally fund and scale projects, which the government customers love. They're able to kind of go out and say, we need this prolonged potential 3-year project. We know we have to incrementally fund, but they can set structure. They can set milestones around that, and then they incrementally fund accordingly. And if milestones aren't met, or if they are met, they just kind of smooth through that transaction process and through that evolution of the project, which is really, really nice. The other thing about smarts is, and this is for some of the folks externally, is there is flexible IP and data rights. So that is something that is discussed during the project negotiation and as the project is structured. So that is something really key for a lot of our partners within the ecosystem is having that discussion on the IP and the data rights up front. The other thing that we have here in the area is we actually have a collaboration lab footprint. We have a lot of our members in and out of that area. It's about 2,000 square feet of open concept collaboration lab. We have a lot of our government customers in and out of there as well. We do a lot of events from that location, and it's just right outside of NSWC Crane. So we see a lot of throughput and a lot of interaction in the ecosystem due to that footprint that we have. Next slide, Alex. Not going to talk about this in detail. Don't worry, I'm not going through each one of these steps. The main thing I want to say is the best way for me to describe NSTXL and where we sit in the middle is it is a two-way street. So I'm constantly working back, very similar to what Mike is doing. I'm constantly working back with the government customer, identifying those problem statements, identifying those OTA projects, helping them document, create kind of the approach around those projects. And in parallel, I'm going out the other side and trying to ensure we're building an adequate community, a community of government-ready providers that when that opportunity gets vetted through and gets opened externally, that they can come in and perform and provide solution sets on that problem set that we're identifying with the government. So really, we march a two-way street, and we're really responsible for helping pull those out, but then also ensuring we're building that community so that they can address those problem sets by the federal government. Next slide, Alex. Okay, so smart scope. So this is one of the first check boxes. Besides the 3 Ps we talked about on OTA, now let's talk about the scope of SMART. So this is the broader definition of the 2 main mission areas that align to the SMARTS OTA out of NSWC Crane. It is spectrum missions and it is strategic missions. So when you read these definitions, you have to kind of make sure you fit into one of these domains. Once the box is checked, then we can go on to the next layer of criteria set that aligns as well, which Alex, if you take me to the next slide, we'll go into the focus areas. So here you go. So once you graduate from those mission areas, you get into the focus areas, and this isn't all of them, but this is most of them. And there is definitions associated with these as well. So again, if you kind of fall into microelectronics, if you fall into RF, if you fall into power and energy, hypersonics, sensors, rad-hard, all of those kind of technology areas, we support all of those on the SMARTS vehicle, and we support those for a very broad network of DoD customers within that scope area. Next slide. SMARTS timeframe. So this is always something that everybody asks us about. Okay, we're talking about rapid acquisition. So what's that really mean? So whenever we have an opportunity that gets vetted from the federal government, the first thing we do is we put out a coming soon announcement. That coming soon announcement is on the street, publicized to that broader network, and typically open for about 3 to 5 weeks before we're able to drop what we call an RFS, which is a request for solution in the OTA environment. So typically 3 to 5 weeks, you get a coming soon, and then an RFS opens. Average RFS is open 30 days on the street. So that will gather all your team, gather all your open dialogue. We have open Q&A with the government customer during that 30 days. It's very, very fast paced and very rapid. Once that RFS closes to award, how quick are we seeing award funds out to the performer? And right now it's 72 days. So pretty quick. Right about 2 months, give or take a little bit, is about how quick we're getting these projects awarded out. To achieve that, there's a couple of things. One, when an RFS is put on the street, government customer has to already have the funding pretty much allocated out. So they have to have it set aside for that project, so we know it's going to be funded, which is very critical in the OTA environment. So when you see an RFS drop from the SMARTS, you pretty much know the funding is there, and you're going to see it in this quick type of turnaround. Next slide, Alex. So another question I get pretty quickly is, hey, where do I see the opportunities, and what do you currently have open? So I currently have, I believe, 6 opportunities incoming soon. and actually the next 3 slides have those. I'm not going to go into detail on these. The link at the very bottom gives you the information. You can also go to smarts.org, and that's S2MARTS.org, and click on opportunities and go into coming soon. You can go into current that's open, and you can kind of read everything, all the opportunities that are on the street right now. These move through pretty rapidly, and I can tell you the pipeline for the upcoming government fiscal year is pretty full. So you're going to see a pretty rapid transition between coming soon to RFS. So Alex, if you just want to kind of flip through the next couple of slides, that would be great. Perfect. And probably the most important slide of all, how do you get a hold of me? And right there's my contact information, Brooke at NSTXL.org. Love to have your questions. Please, please, I love to hear about the companies, hear what you're doing within the area of scope. So please, please reach out. So with that said, and before we get into the open collaboration dialogue between the 3 entities, I'm actually going to turn it over to a great partner, Ann Fields at the Midwest Tech Bridge for NavalX. Ann?
Awesome. Thank you so much, Brooke. Per the usual, you did a phenomenal job. So first, I just want to thank the Mill for having me here today. Mike and Alex, thanks so much for hosting us. This is awesome. I love kind of following you two because it's awesome to see like how much similarities we have with the same real objective of what we're doing in the ecosystem. So it's just awesome to see this. So like Brooke said, my name is Ann Fields. I'm the NavalX Midwest Tech Bridge Director. You guys may or may not know what NavalX is, and we'll certainly get into that. But I am a Crane employee with the dotted line to NavalX. And this is kind of my first experience being, you know, a member of the innovation ecosystem. I was a Crane employee for a while, branch manager, task manager. So this is the first time I've really popped my head out of the foxhole and kind of seen the phenomenal things that the Midwest is doing with regards to the Department of Defense and just our area here. So let's go on to the next slide, please, Alex. So to talk a little bit about what NavalX is. So NavalX is really, to boil it down to its simplest form, its goal is to be a super connector, trying to focus on agility methods across the Department of the Navy. I'm obviously biased because I'm a member of the Tech Bridge organization, but there are 3 or 4 different things that the NavalX team does. It looks like we've got some slidemanship issues here, so I'm sorry about that. But the NavalX team is actually a group of people who sit in the Alexandria, Virginia area, and that team is staffed through rotational cohorts from the warfare centers across the Department of the Navy. So it's really kind of interesting to see all the different perspectives of folks at NavalX. They do a lot of training events, they do a lot of human factor design events, trying to really focus on getting capabilities to the warfighter as fast as possible. What's interesting about NavalX, if you're not following them on LinkedIn or Facebook, they communicate in a really non-typical way for what the Department of Defense generally does. There's a guy named Mohawk Matt who goes live all the time and is just not really like a typical public affairs kind of guy. So it's really interesting to see the way that they are interacting, and I do think that they're being successful. So the idea of the tech bridges is that agility hub that they developed there in the Alexandria, Virginia area, they wanted to recreate that across the United States. And actually we have some tech bridges that are going to be in Hawaii and then one in London. So we're going Oconus, which is going to be really awesome. What's cool about this, actually, Alex, if we'll go to the next slide, please. You can see, at least in the continental United States, where the tech bridges are currently located. The red ones were the ones, like the first 5 or 6 tech bridges that came out in, I think it was September of 2019, and 6 more came on within the past few months. So the team is really standing up at this point. And what's really awesome for us is that anytime we do an event or need to access a different type of industrial base, we can reach out to different tech bridges. One of them, we actually have events coming up that's going to be in partnership with the 401 Tech Bridge out at Newark, Newport, and Rhode Island. And so it's really interesting to have just a direct connection to some of the other warfare centers, and then also the capabilities within their region as well. Next slide, please. So to talk specifically about the Midwest Tech Bridge, these are the focus areas that we have of the information. So it really aligns with the 3 focus areas of Crane, but these are really the technical focus areas that the Tech Bridge is most interested in. As you guys can probably understand or relate to, we have a lot of conversations with folks from the ecosystem, startups, small businesses, folks who are interested in doing business with Crane, or with the DoD in general. So this is really the areas where we focus, but that doesn't mean that we're not interested in technologies that could also help the DoD in other areas. So to go back to the idea of the tech bridges collaborating, I recently had someone reach out who had some textile capabilities. And while that doesn't necessarily align with the Midwest Tech Bridge, that does align with some other tech bridges. So I reach out and kind of communicate those opportunities and those points of contact for those folks who have reached out to us. Similarly, we had someone who did, wave therapeutics. And while that isn't, again, what we're focused on, we did make a connection there with the VA. So we tried to be, our goal really is to be a super connector for our ecosystem. This doesn't really go along with the slide, but I think it is worth mentioning that when I took this job in February of this year, I had the opportunity to sit down with Dr. Seidel, who was the technical director of Crane and is now the executive, executive director for NAVC. And I said, so sir, what am I doing? What do you want to have come from this tech bridge? And he's like, we're already so strong, our ecosystem, and this is credit to folks like Brooke and Mike. Our ecosystem is so strong, you need to take what we're already doing and put it on steroids. So Alex, if you wouldn't mind going to the next slide. This was our attempt at kind of giving an outline of how we were going to put the ecosystem on steroids. So the first one that we really wanted to focus on with the Tech Bridge is to expand and engage the internal and external network. So the external network is, in the simplest form, the folks outside of the Crane gate. So that's industry, that's academia, that's startups, that's folks like Brooke, folks like Mike, members of, the economic development corporations, anyone that has a stake in creating capability for the warfighter is really the external network. Just as important, the internal network is those folks at Crane who are what we call the problem owners. So one of the goals with the Tech Bridge is linking up problem owners with solution providers. And without those problem owners communicating sort of what the warfighters need and what our programs, what our programs of records need, we wouldn't be able to bring much capability to them. So those problem owners, we really want to link up with solution providers. So we are currently expanding and engaging the internal network and hopefully the external network as well. We have what we're calling the Midwest Tech Bridge Steering Group that's comprised of individuals from Crane within the line departments who are technical SMEs who are kind enough to share their problems with us in hopes that we can help find solution providers for them and help them find the best paths forward. Another goal for the Midwest Tech Bridge is to have collaboration space, and we're actually well on the path to making that happen. We have what's called a partnership intermediary with an organization called IN3, the Indiana Innovation Institute. And there's a space that we will be sort of co-located with IN3 at the Westgate Academy. It'll actually be a cyber physical systems lab type space. So much like what Brooke was talking about, we hope to get to that point where SMARTS has been, where there's a lot of collaboration, a lot of good things happening in that space that isn't necessarily behind, the guns, gates, and guards at Crane. So it makes it a little bit more of a friendly environment, places for people to come together and collaborate with those internal stakeholders from Crane. The next one is championing the innovation pipeline. We'll actually hit that one on the next slide. And finally, and probably the lion's share of our time right now is spent on the widely communicated targeted calendar of events focused on intentional connections and collisions. So we'll actually get to that one on the next slide as well. So let's go one more, Alex. So the innovation pipeline is something that NavalX has branded to really kind of illustrate that people that we talk to, business members, small businesses, innovators, startups, entrepreneurs, are all in different places in this pipeline. And all of them don't necessarily know the right person to talk to, the funding sources available to them, the certifications that they need to be able to do business with the Department of Defense. And our goal with the innovation pipeline goal, I guess, is to help people understand where they're at and how we can help them get where they're going. So this is actually a little bit new for the Midwest Tech Bridge. We are gonna really kind of ramp this up over the next year of trying to help vector people in the right direction. And there's going to be a couple of different ways that we do that. Some is, individualized conversations. Some is different events that are focused on, kind of pushing people in the right direction. So more to follow on the innovation pipeline, but we're really excited about the opportunities that might come from that. Next slide, please. So this is our calendar of events. So we really started, as you can see there, we started in March of this year, and we had a technology demonstration as our first event. So to talk a little bit about technology demonstrations, the goal there is for members of the ecosystem to be able to share their capability with those problem owners at Crane. And so we do technology demonstrations that are kind of focused. Like the most recent one we had was focused on hypersonics and UAS capabilities. So we make sure that we have the correct problem owners within the Crane organization on the line. And of course, all of this has been virtual at this point because of COVID. So we've gotten very good at virtual type events. But we make sure that those problem owners are on the line so they can see the capability that those solution providers have. The other type of events that we've had are small business events. Those events are actually, I think, something that came from when Brooke was still a Crane employee. I think she started some of these types of events that we've re-energized. But the idea of the small business events is to really help the ecosystem understand how to do business with Crane specifically. We've had our small business deputy, our technology transfer director, we've had the PTAC organization, we've had both Brooke and Mike on these events. We've had just a ton of different organizations that are all focused on small businesses doing business with the Department of Defense. So those have been really impactful and really fruitful, I believe, hopefully, for the organizations within the ecosystem. Finally, the other types of events that we've had are innovation challenge type events. So it's almost like the antithesis of the technology demonstrations, where the innovation challenge is where we, the internal Crane team, shares our problems with the external ecosystem in a distribution A format to kind of solicit opinions. We actually are in the midst of a lithium-ion battery containment prize challenge, where we've done some AI for small unit maneuver events that we've got a prize challenge coming up for that as well. So the best way to kind of see this schedule is to follow the Midwest Tech Bridge on LinkedIn, and also potentially reach out to me if you go to the next slide, Alex. My contact information is here. Our deputy director is Julie Schaff. Either one of us would be happy to chat with you and understand about your organization and how you might want to partner with the Midwest Tech Bridge. But if you did reach out to us and were interested, we could certainly get you on the distribution to see those events going forward. And I look forward to hopefully meeting some of you guys that are online today. So that's it for my presentation. I do think that we might be going into the question and answer session. So I don't know if we have any yet.
Hey, Ann, I got a couple that are kind of coming in from some of my colleagues via text.
Awesome.
So I think all of us talked about the importance of teaming as we identify opportunities and look to pursue. So Ann, why don't you start us? But what's the importance of teaming, and how does it actually align us toward actual opportunity and a contract win through NavalX? And how do we find teammates inside NavalX?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. So from my perspective, I think that we will not be successful in remaining dominant in the warfighting world if we don't team with academia, industry, smart startups, and small businesses. From my perspective, I think that's where a lot of the technology and innovation resides. And the hard part is, as we all know, is acquisition is not really an easy nut to crack, which I think is why we're all here. And our goal is to try to make the teaming a little bit easier, a little bit more streamlined, and really get the right people hooked up at the right time, because I think we all know that the warfighters, somebody's kid, someone's dad, someone's mom, someone's sister over there. And if we don't do our absolute level best to team here and get the best products together that we can, then that's somebody's kid over there that isn't well equipped to do what they need to do. So I don't know that necessarily answers your question. I will say that I'm still trying to figure out how the Midwest Tech Bridge really links people up. But every day I have 2 or 3 conversations with a new organization or a new business, and there are always these synapses firing of oh, that's someone who needs to talk to this person over here. And oh, I had a conversation with Ohio State University today, and there's 3 or 4 different things and actions that come out of that, of trying to make that connective tissue kind of solidified. So again, don't know that I answered the question, but there's my ramble for you.
No, absolutely. And Brooke, I think inside of Smarts, so I'm a non-traditional or an academic. I read an upcoming solution, and I realize, man, I do about 30% of what's kind of listed there. I really want to submit, but how do I find partners or potential partners inside? Is that something that you guys do as a consortium manager? Or how do I find teammates or potential teammates inside there?
We do actually, and we're seeing a lot of success on that front. So as I mentioned during the brief with our OTA, a lot of our solutions are teaming engagements, and they are teaming kind of activities. So what does that mean? So a lot of times when we do an opportunity, so we have an NSTXL platform that is a very active community platform that when you're a member, you can go out onto the main platform, talk about who you are, talk about your capabilities. But really, to me, where the beauty's at is when a specific opportunity opens, we duplicate and make a new board. And we invite all the members that align into that opportunity via the technology keywords, the capabilities, desire, those type of things. We start dialogue. There's instant dialogue between, hey, I bring this solution, I think I fit here, I'm 30% of it, looking for members for this, this, and this. So we're seeing a lot of open dialogues. The other thing that we're doing now is we have institutionalized what we're calling an Innovator Networks events. It is done in between Coming Soon and in between the RFS. And it is literally done around a technology area. Everybody signs up, they drop in a slide, and it's literally open dialogue on a call like this, where they can say, hey, here's who we are, here's what we think we bring to the table, and here's who we're looking for. And we're getting a lot of teaming engagement that way. We're really trying to force collision. We really are trying to force those interactions within our boards. And like I said, we are seeing a lot of success on that front. And I can tell you from the Smarts angle, I believe every award except one has a teaming arrangement around it. So that is how important it is in the OTA environment. The other thing is this: some of our opportunities, the government does elect for partial solutions. So that your 30%er can come in with a proposal to the federal government, and they can look at that and say, yeah, we like that, and we think they might pair well with this company over here. NSTXL, we think this may be a good team. Go talk to them and see if they're willing to team together, to collaborate, to get us to that full solution set. And we are helping to foster dialogue and relationships like that as well, but very, very critical.
No, thanks, Brooke. And I think, I think some of the kind of cool connective tissue between all of our organizations is, Ann kind of mentioned it, and, where, sometimes it's just a call or an email from an entity or an academic who's like, hey, this is what I do. Can you make some connections for me? And, sometimes all of us are sending kind of a flurry of connecting emails And it doesn't always just reside here at Crane. It's
Right.
sometimes out of state or even out to the coast and things like that through our other colleagues around the country. So one of the things I encourage everybody who's part of the call is do just that. As you look to engage with any of us, this is not just a local thing. We've got a wide footprint kind of around the country and by topic. Brooke, maybe as a follow-on, and this question just came in. What kind of skills or technologies do you think are missing from the local ecosystem, and do you think there's anything Bloomington should focus on specific for developing a certain area?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And what I do is a lot of times I align people back to that scope area within SMARTS. So even though we have a national footprint, right, and SMARTS vehicle has about, in the 18 months since it was created, it was actually awarded in February of 19. We have put about $240 million on contract in 18 months, which is pretty phenomenal for an OTA in a consortium background, all aligned to those scope areas. Yes, we have some Indiana awardees and we have some teaming partners, but I sure would like to see some more in this region. And again, very similar to what Ann has got. She's got areas, technology areas that, her areas and my areas are exactly the same because they align to the three departments at Crane. They're exactly the same. We need to see more technologies in those areas critical to Crane. And yes, we have a national footprint. And yes, we're looking as broad as we can be. But, I'd hate to miss the opportunity of a lab like NSWC Crane sitting in your backyard with universities like what we have in this state, because we have some phenomenal engineering and technology-based universities, to not capitalize on that opportunity around the growth in some of those areas. And also back to your point, Mike, is by 2025, we want to have a higher defense footprint funding into the state. How better to take the connection between all these ecosystem partners like who we are, looking at all the same technology areas and trying to grow in those areas to meet that 2025 goal. So I think the alignments are there. I think the scope is there. And I think you just got to kind of get down to the root bottom of where you see those investment dollars going in those areas.
No, and I like that, Brooke. And, if we kind of pull on that a little bit, I think just a foot stomp for all of us, having a Midwest Tech Bridge, having a DoD program of record like NSIN here locally, and in a local consortium manager with an existing OT who's moving hundreds of millions of dollars through it. If you look kind of nationally, doesn't really exist in many places. So again, encouraging kind of the local folks to take advantage of the tools that are here, so that you can get upstream into influencing requirements and connecting to kind of programs and ultimately winning, whether it's funded research or contract awards.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I'm an academic or a non-traditional. How do I engage NavalX? Do I literally just give you a call or an email, or, what's my engagement method, and what does it mean once I'm engaged?
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I think a call or an email would be a great start. I think the other things to do would be to, like I mentioned, like and follow the Midwest Tech Bridge and also NavalX on LinkedIn. They really do some pretty awesome different types of events. Some are open to the public, some are government only, but it's really interesting just to see the way in which they're moving and the way in which they're communicating. I think it's something that we've not seen historically from, at least that I've never seen since my time at Crane. They are a motivated, excited group of people who are really passionate about doing great things for the warfighter. So yeah, so I think starting out with a chat with me or Julie or both of us, learning a little bit about IN3, our partnership intermediary, and kind of the benefits of that relationship, and then participating in the events that we've had. So in just complete transparency, I think we've been at the crawl stage for a while I got my feet under me and got the wetness behind my ears kind of dried off. but we're getting up into like the crawling and walking stage. And so I'm really excited to see where our tech bridge goes from here. I mean, what's awesome is that the crane team is all in. I mean, from the engagement level, from the commander to the TD level, even, I mean, Dr. Seidel is well aware of what we're doing here. So there is all kinds of support. And the other thing that I would say is if there's something that you, the wider you is interested in, I would love to hear about it. So, you know, like you can get too close to something, right? Like I feel like I'm pretty intimate with the tech bridge. But I would love ideas on like, is there something you want to see from Crane? Is there something that you're interested in? I would love to take a lesson from Mohawk Matt and try to give the people what they want. To your point, Mike, we do have just an incredible ecosystem and just endless opportunities here. And I want to be a part of like making that sort of come to fruition. So if there's something that anyone sees, any constructive criticism that you've got, I would love to hear it. I'm all about it. So I hope that helps.
No, thanks, Ann. No, I think Brooke and I run in that same vein as well. You know, one of the cool things I think about all organizations is we're nimble enough to kind of take that kind of input or feedback and literally make massages into what we do and how we engage. So Brooke, you know, you talked about a lot of contract award dollars moving through the Smarts OTA. You know, I'm a non-traditional academic, and that sounds interesting, but what's my real shot? What's the size of the awards coming through, like per company or per teammate? And, you know, as a non-traditional, do I really have a shot at substantial work share, or is all of it gobbled up by my large prime brothers that are out there?
It's a great question. And unfortunately, the answer is very broad, but I have projects all the way from 200, 250K naturally to millions and millions of dollars, right? And it really just depends on the scope of the project, what the outcome is, and what that government client is interested in achieving. And depending upon the volume or the dollar amount, a lot of times the team differs, right? The smaller projects may only have 1 or 2 people on it, where the larger projects may require a much more diverse team to achieve that larger goal. And a lot of that fluctuates depending on what that kind of looks like. But a lot of times, all of it still starts with being aware of the opportunities. Where do you find the Smarts opportunity? Smarts.org. LinkedIn is huge for us as well. We do marketing campaigns, paid marketing campaigns around some of our opportunities as well. If you're interested in being on the notification list that you don't even have to be a member for, shoot me your email. We'll get you added. You can see everything that comes out and all the comms that come out on any of the Smarts opportunities. The other thing that I missed during my brief is that if and when you do opt in as a member of the consortium, it is at NSTXL level. So what's that mean? That means we have other OTAs that are active. So yes, I'm over the Smarts OTA, which is Navy, although DOD utilizes it, out of NSWC Crane. I have a sister OTA that is out of Army, that is out of ACC Orlando, that does a lot of modeling and sim, training accelerator, very, very broad scope. So if you don't align with us, you could potentially align with them. And when you're a member of our consortium, you're a member of everything. So you don't have to opt in to the individual OTA. So we are constantly passing entities back and forth, academics back and forth, on where they align into that ecosystem for any and all opportunities that we have.
No, nice. And another question that just kind of came in, and maybe I'll kick it off, asking about our organizations having internship opportunities. So a massive yes from NSIN. In fact, Alex and I are going to start our fall recruiting for our X-Force Fellows here in about 3 weeks. And our goal this year could be between 30 and 50 students. So, you know, the way our process works is we'll get problem sponsors from around the country. So even if you're an IU or Purdue student, for example, and you map or align to a problem statement that is out of state, and you're going to go home for the summer or something like that, that is an opportunity for us. Here locally, again, Alex and I will look to do probably 30 to 50 interns or our summer fellows, paid summer fellows on our problem sponsors this summer. But Ann, NavalX, any fellowship or intern opportunities with you guys?
So not that I know of on the NavalX side, but at the Crane does have internship opportunities. There's a corporate hiring team at Crane who's responsible for entry-level hiring and also internships. Also, there's some stuff in the Chief Technology Office with STEM opportunities and other things that I would be happy to link anyone up with. So if someone's interested, shoot me an email with your information, and I'd love to make that connection if I can.
Very cool. Brooke, how about you guys? Do you guys run in any internship opportunities?
Absolutely, we sure are. All over from marketing to technical writing to someone with an engineering kind of background, but absolutely, yes, we are.
And I know we're coming up to the ceiling here, so we'll do two kind of quick final questions. And this just came in. Brooke, any projects on the OTA coming out of the shipyards, or all your projects coming out of NSWC Crane here local?
They're not all out of NSWC Crane. In fact, we have one from NSWC Philly that we just did that it's very depot kind of driven, so kind of similar to what a shipyard background would be on obsolescent ship parts. So we are seeing other opportunities. Do I have one directly out of the shipyard right now? I don't. But I have spoke to several people within the shipyard that are interested in aligning into some of the scope areas within SMARTS. So again, we're kind of across the board. We have a lot of OSD opportunities. We had Philly. I have one out of the Army that I'm actually executing through the OTA because it aligns to our scope.
No, nice. And one of the final sound bites that I've got, it was on the session earlier today, and but NSIN has a recent award to IU for what we call our NSA2 project or program. So our National Security Academic Accelerator, the contract goes to the university to develop university-based intellectual property, and actually through the cohort, they'll form an entity. They'll work with our local ecosystem partners. They'll get credentialed, compliant, and they'll have acquisition to a contract vehicle out the other end. And SMARTS has been a tremendous tech transfer and acquisition partner for us. So that's a recent award, literally in the last 3 weeks, but you'll start to see all of that activity here again in the fall and spring with all of our portfolio programming and opportunities for engagement. Brooke, I want to probably ping you with the very last question, 60 seconds or less. I'm a small company or I'm an academic. I've got intellectual property. How is that treated when I come in for an opportunity or submit for an opportunity inside of SMARTS?
Yeah, so any IP that you bring in that is yours is yours. Again, I go back to that bullet of IP and data rights are very flexible, just like everything else in the OTA environment. Communication is open. You will actually talk to the opportunity owner before ever an award is out there to really drive what that project is going to look like. OTA environment is very, very flexible, very different than FAR-based. So just always keep that in mind, even around IP.
No, fantastic. Thank you, Melissa. I know we're coming up to our ceiling here, but over to you for closing us out.
No, this is perfect. Thank you for a really nice discussion and some great questions. I feel like you guys, the three of you, could have fun talking about this all day long. So we really appreciate it. For all the attendees, we just put something in the chat. That is the rest of our Innovation Week events. You can join us at 5:30 this evening for a happy hour. Bring your own drinks and mingle with others who are interested in cybersecurity and artificial intelligence locally. So it'll be a lot of fun. After that, we have a session from TEDx Bloomington, all about entrepreneurship and innovation. So we'll see you later tonight. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks,
Bye, everyone.
everybody.
Thanks, everybody.